and walking toward them out of the darkness was Jessica herself, literally on fire. She walked out of a burning car trying to tell police the name of her attacker, but no one has ever been charged. This is the tragic, crazy case of Jessica Chambers. Quick disclaimer that I'm just a girl, I'm not a lawyer, and all of this information is publicly available. 19-year-old Jessica Chambers was from this teeny tiny town in Mississippi called Cortland. Everyone knew her. She was the kind of girl who always had a smile on her face. She loved taking selfies, she loved hanging out with her friends, and just living that small town carefree life. She had been through some tough times, but by 2014 she was really turning her life around. She had distanced herself from the wrong people, reconnected with her family, and seemed to be in a great place. On December 6th, 2014, Jessica told her mom that she was just gonna head out to grab something to eat for dinner and that she would be right back. Totally normal night, but just a few hours later, her mom would get the kind of news that no parent ever wants to hear. Around 8 p.m., a 911 call came in about a car on fire in a rural back road. And firefighters rushed out there, and what they found is something that still haunts everyone who worked on that case. It was Jessica's car completely engulfed in flames, and walking toward them out of the darkness was Jessica herself, literally on fire. Her entire body was covered in burns, her hair was gone, and her clothes were burned away, but somehow she was still alive. Somehow she was conscious and trying to speak to the firefighters and to the police and officials who showed up to the scene. She was trying to tell them what happened. They said that she looked like she was in so much pain, but she was really trying to communicate with them. First responders later think that they heard her say what sounded like, quote, "Eric did it," while others thought they heard Derek. But no one could agree on what exactly she said or which name was correct. But those words, those 2 to 3 syllables, would become the biggest mystery in this entire investigation. Jessica was immediately airlifted to a burn center in Memphis. But unfortunately, her injuries were too severe. She had burns on over 90% of her body. And unfortunately, she passed away the next day in the hospital. Her body was fighting so hard as it could, but the injuries were just too severe. I can't even imagine that level of pain and the emotional experience that she went through. I have no words. The whole town of Cortland was in complete shock. Remember, this was a tiny town. Nothing like this ever happened there. Everyone knew Jessica, and no one could understand who or how or why this would happen to her. How could something like this, something so cruel and brutal and horrific, happen to such a sweet, innocent girl like Jessica? So police launched one of the biggest investigations that Panola County had ever seen. They interviewed hundreds of people, combed through thousands of records, and deeply examined her car. What they found was that gasoline residue was all over the scene, meaning it was clear that everything around her had been doused in fuel before it being engulfed in flames. And eventually, one name started coming up. Quentin Tillis. He was a local guy, he was a few years older than Jessica, and he was someone who she'd been hanging out with recently. He was known around town, some people said he was charming, while others said that he had a dark side. And when police questioned him, his story did not add up. First, he said he hadn't seen Jessica that day. Then he admitted they hung out earlier. And then he changed it up again by saying that Jessica picked him up before they got food together. And then he changed it again, saying that Jessica dropped him off before she went to go get food for herself. It's like, dude, pick a story. However, his phone records ended up telling his story for him. His phone pinged the exact tower where Jessica's car was found, right around the same time that she was attacked. And there was also security footage that placed his car near the scene. Everything pointed towards him being guilty. So thankfully, Quentin was arrested and charged with capital. Prosecutors argued that he and Jessica had been hanging out and maybe something went wrong, and he ended up attacking her, making her go unconscious, then dousing the entire scene in gasoline before lighting it on fire, in an attempt to not only get rid of her, but to get rid of any evidence that he was in the car with her. But the problem with this conviction is that his plan kind of worked, and there wasn't any piece of DNA that could link him to being in her car with her. No hair, no blood, no fingerprints, no saliva. The only concrete clue was Jessica's dying words. And because no one could clearly agree on what she said, the defense argued that it wasn't enough to prove he's guilty. So the first trial happened in 2017. The jury deliberated for hours and couldn't reach a verdict, so it ended in a hung jury. So the state retried him in 2018 with new cell phone data and new testimonies, hoping that they'd finally get justice. But again, the jury was deadlocked. So another mistrial, meaning 2 trials, 2 hung juries, and no conviction yet. And what makes it even worse is that after this case, Quentin became a suspect in another unaliving investigation. It was a case in Louisiana of a woman named Ming Chen Haiao. She was found unalived and burned in her apartment in 2015. And the similarities between her case and Jessica's case were chilling. But even then, the Louisiana case ended without a clear conviction. It's like this man keeps slipping through the cracks of the justice system somehow. But Jessica's family has never stopped fighting for her. Her mom, Lisa, has spoken in interviews saying that she knows in her heart who did this, but she's had to live with the pain of justice never being served. Every year, the community holds a memorial for Jessica in the spot that she was discovered. There's a white cross currently there with pink ribbons because pink was her favorite color. And people release pink balloons in her honor. And they say that she's remembered for her laugh, her kindness, and her light. Jessica was 19. She was trying to start fresh with her life. Her entire world was stolen from her in the most horrific way I can even think of. And to this day, no one has been held accountable. Her final words, "Eric did it," or "Derek," are still hanging over this case like a dark shadow. No one knows for sure what she said, but we do know that she deserved better. That is everything I have on this case. I would love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments. Do you think Quentin really did it? Do you think he did both of the attacks? Let me know. I post true crime videos just like this one, so if you like this type of content, follow so you don't miss my next video, and please stay safe out there because you never know what's right around the corner.